"Sir, my sister can't walk, can we stay with you?" said the boy to the single-dad CEO at the shelter. Snow was falling hard that night, the kind of cold that didn't just bite the skin, it sank deep into the bones, freezing hope before it could even breathe. In the middle of the bustling New York street, where fast-moving cars and blurred faces rushed through the storm, a single moment seemed to pause time itself. A small boy in a torn red jacket stood clutching his little sister, her tiny feet bare, her face pale, and her legs trembling helplessly in the cold. And right in front of them knelt Ethan Walker, one of the city's youngest CEOs and a single father who had built his entire life around walls so thick that nothing had broken through for years. But tonight, something changed. It happened the second the boy whispered those trembling words. "Sir, my sister can't walk, can we stay with you?" The desperation in the child's voice cut through the storm like a blade, carving directly into Ethan's guarded heart, a heart he believed had frozen the day his wife died. Before the story continues, if you believe kindness, compassion, and second chances can still change the world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more stories that inspire hope. The boy's name was Liam. He couldn't have been more than 7, though his eyes looked older, the kind of old that comes from carrying burdens too heavy for shoulders so small. The little girl in his arms, wrapped in a faded pink coat dusted with snow, was Maya, barely 3, her braids stiff with ice. One look at her face and Ethan saw bruises, not fresh, but the kind that spoke of long nights, long fears, and long escapes. Ethan knew the look. He had seen it in his own son, Noah, years ago after losing his mother. The emptiness. The fear. The silent plea. And suddenly, the blinding lights of the city felt muted. The world felt smaller. Only these children mattered. Ethan didn't know why, but his voice cracked when he finally asked the boy how long they had been on the streets. Liam stared down at the snow, almost as if confessing shame. They had been moving from place to place since their mom disappeared 3 days earlier. They had been sleeping behind dumpsters, alleyways, abandoned stairwells, anywhere that kept Maya out of the wind. They had come to this shelter because someone told them that people here sometimes help strangers. But what struck Ethan hardest was when Liam whispered that Maya hadn't walked in nearly a week. She had fallen somewhere on their second night alone, and since then, she cried whenever she tried to stand. Liam had been carrying her everywhere, even when his own legs buckled under exhaustion. A child carrying a child. A little boy trying to be a father. A world failing its most fragile souls. Ethan felt something swell painfully in his chest. He knew he couldn't walk away. He picked Maya gently from her brother's tired arms and told them they could stay at the shelter for tonight while he figured things out. Liam's expression softened with a mix of exhaustion and disbelief, as if he was waiting for someone to snatch the offer back. Inside, the shelter smelled of warm soup, old coats, and hope worn thin but still alive. Volunteers moved around handing meals to those who had no one. Ethan rarely visited places like this, not because he didn't care, but because after losing his wife, he had spent years drowning himself in work, money, meetings, mergers, anything that didn't require feelings. But standing there now with these 2 tiny strangers, he felt something awaken. He found Noah sitting near the back with his tutor, coloring quietly. When the boy glanced up and saw his dad holding a shivering little girl, his face lit with natural curiosity. Noah knew loneliness, but he also knew kindness, something his mother had taught him before her illness took her away. Maya's legs were swollen. Ethan gently touched her ankle and felt the heat burning through her sock. She needed a doctor. Immediately. When he lifted her again, she clung to him as if afraid he might disappear, her tiny fingers gripping the fabric of his coat like lifelines. The trust she offered so instantly shook something deep in him. Liam followed closely behind, eyes glued to his sister, as if ready to throw himself into fire if it meant protecting her. At the hospital, as nurses carried Maya away for tests, Liam began to panic. Ethan placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, firm but gentle, and reassured him that she would be okay. It was strange, Ethan thought, how natural it felt to comfort him, how easily he fell into the role of protector for someone who wasn't his blood. When the doctor returned, they confirmed Maya had a severe sprain, untreated for days, and mild frostbite on her feet. She needed warmth, rest, and a safe place. A safe place. Those simple words crashed into Ethan harder than anything else. A safe place, something these children hadn't had in far too long. The hospital forms listed no guardian, no emergency contacts, nothing but the children's names. Ethan realized Liam had been telling the truth, their mother was gone, and no one knew where. As they left the hospital, Liam tugged lightly at Ethan's coat. His voice was small when he asked if they could stay with him again. Not forever, just until their mom came back. Ethan didn't have the heart to tell him that sometimes mothers don't come back. But he did have the heart to say yes. He took them to his home, a warm, spacious apartment overlooking the city, where Noah had his own room, his own toys, and his own memories. Liam stepped inside carefully, as if afraid he might break something just by breathing. Maya lay in Ethan's arms, sleepy, warm for the first time in days. That night, after they were fed and given clean clothes, Ethan found Liam standing quietly near the living room window, watching the snow fall. He said he had never seen a view from so high. He said the city looked peaceful from above, like a place where nothing bad could reach them. Ethan knelt beside him, asking gently about their mother. And that was the moment the truth spilled out. They had been living in a broken apartment with a stepfather who drank too much and yelled too loud, and one night he became worse than usual. Their mother told them to run fast, run far, and she would come get them later. But she never did. Liam had waited for hours before realizing she wasn't coming. Ethan closed his eyes. Pain. Fear. Abandonment. No child should ever know these words. Over the following days, Ethan took time away from work, something his board had never seen him do. He read to Maya while she healed. He taught Liam how to tie Noah's old winter boots. He cooked meals, helped with homework, and rearranged his schedule around bedtime routines. Somewhere in between, the apartment that once felt too quiet became alive with soft laughter, spilled toys, mismatched socks, and tiny footsteps. Noah loved having them around. He called Maya Princess and taught Liam how to play video games. And Ethan, he slowly realized he wasn't just helping them, they were healing him, too. Healing parts of him he thought had died with his wife. But reality eventually came knocking. Social services reached out, investigating the children's case. They wanted the full story, paperwork, background checks, and placement options. Liam clutched Ethan's hand the whole time, terrified they would be taken away again. When the officer mentioned temporary foster homes, Maya whimpered and buried her face in Ethan's chest. Ethan's heart cracked open completely. That night, he stayed up long after the children had fallen asleep. He stood by the window with a heaviness he hadn't known in years. Could he really take them in? Could he be a father again, not just to Noah, but to two more children who weren't his by blood but had already become his in every other way? As he watched the snow fall like silent prayers, he realized the answer had been inside him from the moment Liam spoke those first trembling words in the street. He needed them as much as they needed him. The next morning, Ethan made his decision. When the social worker arrived for the follow-up visit, he looked her straight in the eyes, his voice steady and strong, and said he wanted to apply for emergency guardianship. He wanted to keep them safe. He wanted to give them a home. He wanted to be their father. The process wasn't easy. There were interviews, inspections, investigations, and paperwork that felt endless. But every time Maya reached for him or Liam smiled a little brighter, Ethan felt more certain he was doing the right thing. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Ethan returned home to find all three kids sprawled on the floor building a pillow fort. They laughed when he tried to enter and knocked the entire thing over. The snow had melted, but the memory of the night Ethan Walker brought Liam and Maya home still lingered like a soft echo in the corners of his heart. Months had passed since then, and the apartment that once felt painfully quiet after his wife's death had turned into a warm, living place again. Children's laughter bounced off the walls, the kitchen smelled of pancakes and tiny accidents, and the sound of soft footsteps filled the early mornings. For the first time in years, Ethan felt whole. He felt alive. He felt like he had been given a second life, not just for himself, but for Noah, and now for Liam and Maya too. But life has a way of testing the things you cherish most. Happiness breeds fear, fear of losing what you finally dared to love. One calm morning, as Ethan placed cereal boxes in the pantry, the doorbell rang. It was an ordinary sound, but something about it made his heart pause. Perhaps it was a father's instinct. Perhaps it was the quiet, uneasy silence that followed the bell. When he opened the door, a woman stood there, tired, hollow-eyed, hands trembling. Beside her was a social services officer, silent and solemn. The woman introduced herself as Emily, Liam and Maya's mother. The world seemed to tilt. Ethan felt a cold rush through him, the kind that comes when fear and confusion collide. Emily stepped inside, and the moment she saw her children playing quietly in the living room, her breath broke. Tears filled her eyes, and her legs buckled as grief and longing poured out in a flood. She had been searching for them for weeks, moving from shelter to shelter, police station to police station, hoping, praying, begging the universe not to take them away. Liam froze when he saw her. Not with joy, but with uncertainty. There are wounds that time cannot quickly heal, and a mother's absence is one of them. Maya looked at her as if the face was a fading memory, someone she knew once but could not fully place. Instead of running forward, Maya shuffled backward and clung to Ethan's leg, her little fingers tightening as if she feared he would disappear if she let go. Emily broke down harder at that, at realizing the extent of the damage life had carved into her children. That day, Emily told the whole truth. The night she told them to run, she was running too, from an abusive husband whose rage had escalated into something deadly. She had tried to return for them, but by the time she fought through the police, shelters, emergency relocations, and hiding places, her children were gone. Not lost, just moved so quickly for safety that she had been left behind in the chaos. Everything inside Ethan twisted painfully. He could see she was broken, fragile, and desperately trying to put herself back together. But he also saw what her children saw, fear, confusion, memory, and love tangled in a painful knot. He thanked her for telling the truth, but the questions lingered like snowfall outside the window. What happens now? Would she take them away? Could he survive losing them? That night, after everyone slept, Ethan sat alone by the window. The city lights blinked like distant memories. His heart felt like a battlefield, torn between what was right, what was legal, and what was love. He knew he wasn't their biological father. But he also knew he had become something else entirely, the arms they ran to, the voice they trusted, the home they slept safe in. The next day, social services returned. But something unexpected happened, something no one saw coming. Emily, soft-spoken but determined, insisted she wasn't ready to take them back. She admitted she needed more time to heal, to rebuild, to learn how to be a mother again without fear haunting her every step. Then she said the words that shook Ethan's entire soul. She asked him if they could raise them together, not as a couple, not as rivals, but as a partnership. A unit built on love for the same two children who had carried too much pain for their age. She saw how safe they were with Ethan. How Noah treated them like siblings. How Maya clung to him like a guardian angel she never wanted to lose. She told him she wasn't here to tear a family apart, she simply wanted to be part of it again. It was a rare moment, two adults choosing not ego, not pride, but healing. Months passed, and they formed an unusual but beautiful team. Emily attended therapy and built a stable life again. Ethan continued raising the children with patience, strength, and unconditional love. Noah taught Maya how to walk with confidence and shared his toys with Liam as if they had been brothers from birth. The house had more people now, but instead of chaos, it felt like a blended harmony, a family stitched together by resilience and second chances. One evening, Maya ran into Ethan's arms with a tiny smile and called him Daddy Ethan for the very first time. He held her tightly, tears burning his eyes, knowing that some titles aren't earned by blood, only by heart. A few days later, Liam hugged his mother with a calmness that hadn't existed before. He told her he wasn't afraid anymore. That he felt safe, not because one adult protected him, but because two did. When social services revisited their case, they witnessed a rare miracle, a family that had split apart and then rebuilt itself stronger than before. They approved joint guardianship, stating that the children were thriving emotionally, mentally, and physically. It wasn't conventional, but nothing about this journey had ever been conventional. And so, their story continued, not as a fractured beginning or a tragic rescue, but as a new chapter carved from healing, trust, and the kind of love that survives storms. Liam, Maya, Noah, Ethan, and Emily, 5 people who had once been lost in different ways, became one family. A real one. Not perfect. Not simple. But honest, raw, and built on the belief that love doesn't come from where you start. It comes from those who choose to stay.